Hi guys, and welcome to another 10 facts. This time it's for Sega's beloved final console, the Dreamcast. Being released in November 1998 in Japan and in 1999 in other regions, the Sega Dreamcast was the first machine released in what is now known as the 6th generation of video game consoles, in the running with the PS2, the Nintendo GameCube and the Xbox. The Dreamcast was Sega's last home console and developed primarily to win back Sega's fans after some dismal hardware marketing choices. The performance of the Mega CD, 32X and Saturn had greatly hurt Sega's reputation, and they were keen to return to the glory days they had experienced during the Mega Drive's lifespan. In the face of stiff competition from Sony, Nintendo and Microsoft, the Dreamcast landed in a disappointing 4th place, and Sega withdrew from the console race. By the end of its lifespan, the Dreamcast had sold 9.1 million consoles worldwide. Many games that were in development for the Dreamcast at the time of its demise were eventually released for other platforms. However, the console still has a dedicated fan base even to this day, and games are still being released for the system. To see a long abandoned console have such a large scheduled release list is a wonderful thing. So without further ado, let's crack on with my 10 Dreamcast facts. The Dreamcast was the first console supported by an actual operating system. Take a look at the front of the console and you'll see the words compatible with Windows CE. Way before the Xbox was around, Sega and Microsoft had a shared hand in the Dreamcast because Dreamcast games booted alongside a version of Windows CE, and many of them used DirectX based graphics. As programmers already knew how to program with DirectX libraries, the console was very easy to program for. Fewer complications meant more time to focus on the things that mattered, like gameplay. This was a huge leap from the Saturn, which was notoriously complex to program for. As the Dreamcast was based upon arcade hardware and had an arcade counterpart, the Naomi, porting games was relatively easy, and the Dreamcast saw a flurry of fantastic arcade ports from first-party developers and also third-party devs like the arcade giants Capcom. The Dreamcast was designed to bridge the gap between console and PC gaming using the keyboard and mouse peripherals, and many of its first-person shooters were designed with these controls in mind to allow seasoned PC gamers to transition to the console with ease. Microsoft's Xbox very nearly had backwards compatibility with Dreamcast games. With the Dreamcast in its dying days, Sega were trying to partner with Microsoft to allow the Dreamcast to survive alongside the Xbox. Sega chairman Isao Okawa met with Bill Gates several times in an effort to make this happen. Unfortunately, Microsoft weren't keen on allowing Dreamcast games online, which was a deal breaker for Sega, and the agreement never came to fruition. Despite efforts to the contrary, Dreamcast games ended up being the most easily pirated ever. Sega tried to combat the rising wave of game piracy with its custom GD-ROM discs that were supposed to make piracy much harder. In fact, quite the opposite happened, as all it took to pirate games was a few free programs and a CDR of the Dreamcast disc image, without the need of any console modification, as with other systems like the PlayStation. The group behind most of the piracy was called Echelon. Whenever a game came out, Echelon had it up within days for download. Finally, in 2001, Sega Smash Pack Volume 1, a collection of 7 Sega Mega Drive games, was released. Hidden in the game's code was a text file named Echelon that gave instructions on how to pirate Mega Drive games onto the Dreamcast. It was signed Gary, and it is believed to be the work of lead programmer for Sega Smash Pack, Gary Lake. The Dreamcast featured innovative memory cards called Visual Memory Units, or VMUs. These displayed logos or other images depending on the game being played. In Shenmue 2, a progress bar is displayed on the VMU when Ryo is practicing a new technique. When he masters the technique, the VMU beeps. They even allowed standalone games to be played on them when disconnected from a console, as the VMUs featured their own D-pad and 4 buttons. For example, the Sonic Adventure games had a KO minigame. The player loads a KO into a VMU, they then raise it like a Tamagotchi and then unlock items in the actual game the next time they load it up. this wasn't the only usage of the VMU. It would display various things about the game that's currently being played, or just a cool logo. Transfer of data is also possible without the use of a console by simply connecting two VMUs together. If you open up a Dreamcast VMU, you'll find inside a chip with the word potato printed on it. There is no known explanation of this besides the obvious play on words, potato chip. Although the Dreamcast was officially discontinued in early 2001, commercial games were still developed for it, and worldwide software support continued until 2002, ending on February the 12th in the US with the release of NHL 2K2, and in Europe on May the 3rd with Cannon Spike and Freestyle Scooter. In Japan, software support continued for much longer. On February 24th, 2004, Sega released its final Dreamcast game, Puyo Puyo Fever. The final third-party game for the system was Kuros, or Crows, in March of 2007. Inserting a Dreamcast disc into a CD player will result in the following message being played.
This is a Dreamcast disc and is for use only on a Dreamcast unit. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers. Please stop this disc now.
The Dreamcast Swirl logo differs in colour depending upon region, with Japan having orange, North America red and Europe blue. The swirl design is said to represent origin of power. The German company Tavola have a logo with an orange swirl, which is said to be the reason why the Dreamcast swirl was changed to blue in Europe. The Dreamcast was the first console to include a built-in modem for internet support and online gaming. Previous consoles such as the Mega Drive and Saturn had online capabilities, but these were comparably limited and/or required extra hardware. As a result, the Dreamcast had a web browser, some great online games, and some games such as Sonic Adventure 2 even had DLC. It also had the first console MMO, Phantasy Star Online. Sega released some awesome peripherals for the console. The Dreamcast was the first console to have a camera peripheral, the Dream Eye, and used motion controllers. The Dream Eye was the first camera to tether to a console, and the fishing rod and Samba de Amigo maracas were motion controllers way before the Wii even existed as an idea. Prior to the Dreamcast's release, Sega was dealt a blow when the world's largest third-party video game publisher, EA, announced it would not be developing games for the system. In the late 80s, early 90s, EA began their relationship with Sega, making games for the Mega Drive. They brought out games like John Madden Football, Road Rash and James Pond. Not wanting to pay Sega's $8 to $10 cartridge fee per game, EA decided to reverse engineer the Mega Drive cartridge so they could produce their own. Ever wonder why EA games look different to other carts with that unique yellow tab? They put forward the idea of them only paying $2 per cartridge with a $2 million cap on the fee. Terrified that EA would sell their reverse engineering knowledge to other publishers, Sega agreed to the deal. In the next 3 years, EA saved over $35 million, and John Madden went on to become the best-selling sports title in history. When it came to the Dreamcast, EA were adamant that they would need to be the only publisher allowed to release sports titles for the system. The then president of Sega of America, Bernie Stolar, recounted that EA president Larry Probst wanted exclusive rights to be the only sports brand on the Dreamcast, which Stolar could not accept due to Sega's recent $10 million purchase of sports game developer Visual Concepts. The Dreamcast wouldn't have EA's hugely popular sports games, so the Sega sports titles developed mainly by Visual Concepts would have to fill that void. Visual Concepts went on to build a hugely successful library of games under their 2K brand, so EA ended up just buying the sole rights to the NFL brand and forcing them out of the race. So that's it for my 10 Dreamcast facts, guys. As always, if there are any you particularly like to see in the future, stick them in the comments, and thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one.